Joining me on the Gridiron Gallery podcast today, we have my affiliate that I am with, the owner of the said affiliate site, XFL Newsroom. He also is the ref says that, if you will, and he pretty much is our inside guy on XFL. He helps edit the site and keeps us all in line, and me in line in particular as well. It is Stephan Rachuk. He is joining us today. We're going to be talking some big news, Stephan, but before we get to that, how have you been in these last few months? You know, it's been kind of a lull in news really since the new ownership's taken over, at least the last 2 months. It's been kind of quiet.
Yeah, that's the thing. Everybody has been waiting. We've been anticipating the news. We kind of expected something to happen right after the Super Bowl. Super Bowl came and went, no news. We saw some teasers on Instagram from Danny Garcia, but again, we didn't know. Is it for the XFL? Is it for one of these other brands? We finally have some concrete news. Other than that, we just got through the big, horrible winter storm in Texas. Again, I'm from Detroit. I'm used to feet of snow, so I'm still a little amazed that everything was shut down over a quarter inch of snow. But you know what? We have power back. We're ready to roll.
Well, I'm glad you're at least getting back on your feet there, because I mean, Jesus, that the news around that storm, and we kept asking you as well, like, you all right? And it's like, yeah, no, I'm good now. Just a few delays, but we're kicking things into gear. And as we're talking this week, we're really kicking back into gear. I mean, we had a bomb. I'm calling it a bombshell. It's a bombshell, and this is not only for XFL community, but like the CFL community, because as according to the headlines, and as we also were kind of trying to be on the ball with this week, the XFL is in talks with collaborating with the CFL. Now, there's a lot of question marks that have come out of this already. You have both the communities that are either, I would say, close to pessimistic or highly optimistic, depending on who you talk to. There's a lot of variance. There's a lot of people asking questions, and a lot of the head officials so far don't even have many of the answers. What'd you make of all of this? I mean, it kind of just, I don't know if it seems out of the blue, but it's almost like one of those like spring or like alternative football fever dreams, if you will.
It is right. When the XFL was first coming around, the lead up to 2020, I'm sure you saw it all over social media, right? The playoff possibilities between the AAF, the XFL, and the CFL. And you know what? It may actually happen, right? Mm-hmm. When I first saw the news, I honestly didn't know what to take of it, right? Especially when the XFL put out their official announcement and kind of buried deep down in there said, by the way, 2020 is on hold until the discussions are over. But after looking into it, right, so I've listened to some interviews with CFL Commissioner Randy Ambrosie. We've kind of gotten some more information, spoke to some of my sources within the XFL, and it seems, at least according to them, right now, that the goal is still to play in 2020, right?
Okay.
Or 2021 or 2022. Geez, I don't even know what's going on anymore. 2020. That's how long 2020 was.
It's been a year.
Yeah. But the goal is to play in 2022, whether that be right after the Super Bowl, whether that be later in the summer when the CFL plays, we don't know. One other thing I can tell you is, going into it, they were talking, or they were confirming that they were talking. And Randy Ambrosie said it time and time again with his interview yesterday, that they're basically announcing that they're talking about talking, right? And that could be 1 month, that could be 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. But again, from what I understand, they're looking to have a decision within 2-3 months here.
Okay.
So, I didn't expect that. And I don't know if that's truly to be expected, but that's what I understand here. And if that's the case, we might have some news. How that's going to play out, how it's going to work with the different rules and different field sizes and how that all works, I don't know. But it seems like we might be onto something.
Well, see, that's one of the things that keeps being brought up. It's like the first big questions that anyone's had about this since they've made an announcement of collaboration. Alignment is a word that's being thrown around too a lot. Is a merger on the horizon? When's a merger happening? Which that brings its own array of questions on how you would even do that and if it's realistic. I guess from anything that sounds like, I know it's early, but I mean, does this sound like a merger type of thing, like down the line, or like almost like we're just going to be having like a one meets the other at the end of the season for like an intercontinental championship to you? Like, how do you approach this? I mean, Ambrosi said it in actually a Q&A on third down on the thirddownNation.com, which is one of my favorite CFL websites since I've started kind of following them this year. He said himself that we're, as speculators, laps ahead. But I mean, even with that being said, like, where do you see this going?
Well, that's exactly right. Anything that we're talking about now at this point is purely speculation. I mean, it really all depends on how beneficial it is for both leagues, right? If this is a success, if it achieves the goal of the CFL breaking into the U.S. market, and it achieves the goal of the XFL becoming sustainable, I mean, anything's possible. I could absolutely see there being a merger in years. I don't know if right away. It might have to test the waters. How it plays out right away, I mean, it's hard to say. I would love to see interleague play. I would love to see maybe the champions play each other. I don't know how it works out, but yeah, the possibilities are endless, right? And I mean, hopefully we'll have more news in the coming months. I don't think we will, but again, people are hopeful that we're going to have news sooner rather than later. But yeah, looking to the future, I mean, again, if it works out, I don't see any reason why there wouldn't be a merger. But again, this is all speculation. This is just my opinion. There's going to be people listening to this, especially the Canadians. And no, I love them. I love them. They're my friends to the north. I used to live in Detroit, right on the border. But I've been reading the comments online. And, when they hear XFL, I have a feeling they're thinking of 2001 and not 2020. And hopefully, whether it be interleague play or whatever type of agreement that they work out, they'll learn to see, oh, the new XFL is not the XFL of old. And quite honestly, they have a benefit to work with each other, right? The CFL missed a season. The XFL got its inaugural season cut in half. I mean, and that hurt me as a Roughnecks fan. Because I'm telling you, we were going to go undefeated, and there's nothing that anybody listening to this can say to convince me otherwise. So I just had to add that in the end. I apologize.
No, I'm going to be honest. I mean, hey, I'm going to be honest with you. I know I'm wearing the Wildcats jersey, but I do have other jerseys. I'm the Battlehawk, one of the many Battlehawks guys on Newsroom, for crying out loud. I'm just saying, I mean, I think we could have had our shot if we got a rematch, but that's just me.
Think so.
Me just throwing that in there while I'm at it. But, the possibilities are kind of endless. One thing that I will mention that kind of is being implied here. So I'm going to read you off Jeffrey Pollock's statement on this, and then I'm also going to reference Danny Garcia as well in a tweet that she made. So they're trying to do an alignment or kind of a collaboration is what they're saying with the early talks. So in their statement, or in Jeffrey Pollock's statement, he states, quote, "We are honored and excited to be in discussions with the CFL. It's clear through our early conversations that we share a passion for football, an expansive sense of possibility, and a deep desire to create more opportunity for players and fans across North America and around the world." I'm going to end it right there. So one thing the CFL has been doing a lot since Ambrosi has become commissioner, they are pushing the global initiative and have been one of the leaders in global combines, global players, and global places in rosters. I think last I checked, you can have upwards of 2 global players that are required on each roster in the CFL. So I'm curious, do you see that with that quote and with the CFL's initiative, does that push the XFL and the CFL to become the leaders in global expansion of the sport?
I mean, instantly, I would say so, right? If the XFL and the CFL have like a true collaboration, maybe not a merger, but a true collaboration, I mean, they're already ahead of the NFL. They don't have any teams in Canada. And then you look at some of the partnerships the CFL has been making south of the border in Mexico. They have a true North American alliance of football, right? You have all 3 regions kind of covered there. And I believe, and again, somebody will probably tell me I'm wrong, and they could be right, but I'm fairly certain they're trying to work with leagues across the sea as well over in Europe, at least trying to get their feet on the ground there. I mean, yeah, it's an interesting one, right? The NFL, it's, everybody thinks the NFL is too big to fail, and I don't think they're going to fail, but that doesn't mean that there's not opportunity out there for there to be a true global secondary league, right? There's untapped markets all over the globe, right? If you go into Australia, right, they have Australia rules football, which is pretty gnarly, but I'm pretty sure they would accept an American style football team.
Right.
Europe, clearly with the NFL Europe, I love that. Throwback Oliver Luck over there, but I think we could see something like that. Again, that would be something that's probably way down the line. We're probably talking 5-10 years if this partnership is successful, if both companies are making money, if there's a merger maybe. But yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's revisit it a second here because they are doing talks, but as you just mentioned, and the sources mention, they're looking to do this within 2 to 3 months again. Is that correct?
That's what I hear. I don't know how much I would, actually pinpoint that, but that's what I hear. That's
Okay.
that's what they're
So
saying now.
how do you think that would affect, because they're trying to still do 2022 from everything it sounds like. Originally, the way that it was first referenced by other article websites as well as news sources was that it was almost like they were pushing on to 2023, but it's sounding more and more as we have dug into this, they want to do a 2022 season. It's just they want to get this done first. Does that push the timeline back, or does that continue it where we're trying to hit February like we originally thought?
I would, even before this, to be honest, I would think that the February timeline, if they don't push it back, it would be a mistake. And I only say that because I look at the graveyard of spring football. I look at the AAF. I look at the XFL 2001. All of these other leagues that you really didn't hear anything about until September. They rushed it in and then fell on their face. Right now, things are a little bit different with the XFL, right? They're not starting from scratch. From what I understand, they have all their equipment. They have, most of, if not all of the leases in some shape or form, whether they re-signed or continued on with their old contracts. TV's kind of a muddy area, so we don't know there. But I mean, with The Rock on hand, it seems like he has good ties with NBC, and I know NBC is trying to push their Peacock app. So, I mean, it's not the greatest. It's not ESPN and Fox, but I think there's a home for the XFL somewhere, whether it not be XFL or ESPN or Fox or just NBC. Sorry, I got way off track there. What was the original question?
No, I was just asking how this would affect the timeline in general.
Oh, yes. Sorry. Yeah, it's bud time here, so we're getting a little off track. Yeah, as far as timelines, like I said, I would expect it to be pushed out. I don't know if that's the case, whether that be all the way until summer when the CFL plays, because that might be the goal, just to buy them some time and to give the CFL a little bit more support because they're coming off of missing a season. They're saying that they're not having financial troubles, but I mean, not to say that they are, but missing a season of tickets and sales, that it's not the greatest situation to be in. So it truly is beneficial for both teams. If I were to put money on it, I would say that we don't start the week after the Super Bowl. Whether that means it's 2 weeks after the Super Bowl, I don't know, but I would say I would be surprised if we start the week after the Super Bowl.
Fair enough. And yeah, and that's kind of something I've wondered myself is if you're going to take a few months, like like it's being supposedly talked about, that you'd have to feel like that timeline. If you're going to hit 2022, you might have to push it back. I mean, now credit the 2022 schedule of spring leagues is kind of jammed. So going off a list here. So you have the XFL, which still supposedly is going to play as itself. You're going to have the CFL, which is going to restart this year. They have said, Ambrosi has stated in the same Q&A I referenced for Three Down Nation, that they are dedicated to 2021. This will not affect the 2021 season whatsoever. These are just talks for the future, or essentially 2022 and beyond is what has been referenced. So you have those two leagues. You have the MLFB, which is still supposed to be doing a test season this year. We're waiting to hear about a few more details. They were supposed to say something this month, hoping that comes out soon. The Spring League, which is in the process. They said they were going to play in the spring. There have been some of our known sources on Twitter, or guys that we collaborate on Twitter, that have said that there's details coming. We just have to wait. And then Freedom Football League, which has been in the wait, but claims they're starting in 2022. So pretty tightly packed competition, to say the least. I guess this is another thing of just getting your thoughts on this. Do you see this as a way to just, with all that competition coming up, as a way to strengthen them and make them positioned as the premier spot to go with that alignment or collaboration that they're now talking about for next year and beyond.
I think so, and I think it is for both leagues, quite honestly, right? Because you look at the CFL, they were watching the XFL last year, and they looked at not only players but coaches and all sorts of different executives. A lot of people moved over to the XFL, some of which have gone back to the CFL since then. So again, at least from their terms, it makes sense to try to work with the CFL because it kind of safeguards themselves to a certain extent.
Right.
But for the XFL, for people that might be hesitant for coming to a league that's essentially folded twice, right? The news was bad the first time around trying to get people. There was a good enough hype, but coming right back to back right into it, yeah, I think it does help them. And quite honestly, if you look at that partnership again, if it truly ends up being a partnership, if I were a player and I had a choice between the Freedom Football League or the Major League Football, and nothing against those leagues, or the CFL or the XFL, I mean, I'm probably going to choose the CFL or the XFL. You're going to have a better chance of being on some sort of television. If anything, there's a track record of those players moving on to the NFL. I mean, PJ Walker, he beat my Detroit Lions, and I wasn't even sad about it, So yeah, I think that's probably one of the, maybe not one of the main decisions, but one of the big thinking points going into it.
Well, if anything, it also keeps them in the news too. I mean, one thing that's come out with a lot of CFL, like at least accounts or things, specifically something I saw on Twitter today. /CFL. That's their main Reddit. We have two main XFL Reddits, as you know, that are both in the community. Theirs have said that they've had more interactions with people and have had interest in the CFL in several years. Like, this has actually helped re-spark interest in the league, which is funny. Looking into the CFL, they have a youth problem, as in trying to incorporate fans. What does the XFL have? They are perfect. They have been great in 2020 at getting that side that the CFL doesn't have and bringing innovation. They just don't have the stability.
Right.
Both of them have what each other wants. And I think that's actually kind of smart that this looks to be that way, and that they are at least capitalizing on that. One thing I am curious, though, is there's been talks that the CFL did lose between 10 to $20 million as they were projecting last year. The XFL, at least Redbird, has been investing a lot. I know that they're talking that this is a influx for capital. I'm just not sure, and I'll leave you off here to hear you on this. I'm just not sure if the XFL, I mean, is the money maker or the influx of capital that the CFL wants. I mean, I know that Redbird is being kind of what is it? Is it bullish, if you will, on their purchases? Yeah. I'm just curious because that's been like an argument. I don't know if I completely agree with that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a hard one to see. I think it's more about just having stability and more people and using the same vision to help each other out, right? Again, the CFL executives have said time and time again, this has nothing to do with financial problems. And I mean, that's probably true, but there's probably a little bit of financial piece in there that, although it's not a problem, it's definitely a benefit to work with the guys. Whether it's not going to cover their bank, it's not going to pay off all, the $10 million they lost, but if anything, and I think this is the goal, at least from their perspective, it gets them back in the game, right? Just as you mentioned, and I even heard this from 3 Down Nation. I think it was Justin Dunk that did the interview.
Yes.
He even said there was about 3 or 4 of his friends that haven't watched CFL in years that had reached out to him just because of this deal, similar to what you mentioned on Reddit. And maybe it's not money, but it's that exposure, and it gets them back into the United States. Although it failed back when they tried in the 90s, it's a little bit different atmosphere. And, with the XFL, I would say the XFL was a success last year. It was circumstances that ruined it. At least it wasn't like 2001 where we all know, okay, that was the XFL's fault.
Yeah.
This time around, there was nothing the XFL could do. The ratings were stable. They weren't astronomical, but they were stable, and we were getting on average over 1 million views. To me, that's good. You had, I mean, every week that I went to a game in Houston, there was more fans. It was expected in places like New York, where it's freezing and the stadium was, I mean, to be honest, a little bit oversized, that even when you had 10,000 fans there, it looked like it was empty. I think the XFL was in good shape. And I honestly, it's a shame that the people that worked there had to be furloughed or lose their jobs, because there was a lot of great people, everything down from the players to the low level staff to the executives. Everybody I met was great, you know, so that's the real sad part about all this, you know.
Yeah, I cannot say I've met a few people in person, mainly at my opening the opening weekend for the Battlehawks was my main interactions with crowds there and fans. And it's ravenous. You know, we all know that they were going to almost fill the dome in St. Louis, the dome in St. Louis, at least when we were going to be expecting it in week 6. And you know, it didn't come to fruition. But you know, the appeal's there, you know, and you talk about the viewership, you know, people I don't think remember that, you know, it was on par with NBA and NHL games.
Exactly.
And to me, you know, you aren't going to beat the NFL, but if you're competing with the two other biggest sports in the US, if not in North America, pretty sure you're doing pretty well, you know, not to mention that there were talks they were going to pay PJ Walker or Jordan Ta'amu to stay on to compete because they were recognizable stars. So they were making their own stars. They had the strategy right, you know, so the momentum's there. And obviously the brand's there because, I mean, the whole reason this is blowing up and has been big across, you know, social media for sports as well as, you know, on, you know, news sites and such is the fact that the XFL's brand hasn't really died. It's still pretty valuable, at least to those people, and it re-energizes. So, you know, I'm looking forward to the future ahead. Is all I can
agree.
say.
Well, I can agree. I'll tell you, the one thing that'll prove that the XFL brand is still alive and how much people have been waiting for news. Just those stories yesterday crashed the site. I'm sure you saw it, right?
Yes, I tried getting on.
Right. So, I mean, that's my indicator. That's my barometer. You know, I look at that and I say, oh, okay. Because I'll tell you, because we've been around since early 2018 and I've seen it come and go just throughout the different announcements. And as we're really leading into 2020, we had a couple redundant servers. Since then, I said, well, I'll just reduce them. It's been a little bit slow. I'm not going to spend the money, but okay, now I know the interest is there still, right?
Absolutely.
So, you know, sign us up.
And actually, yeah, sign me up too. I've already been signed up, to be honest with you, know that.
Yes.
But here's the deal: where can everyone else sign up? Because look, we have a lot, and I'm gonna be, of course, talking us up here a bit, but it's true. We have a lot of good writers on this site. You know, you're our inside guy, and you've been excellent at getting us coverage too. And we, you know, we're XFL Newsroom is one of the top places to go for your news coverage, and we're finally getting into the cycle where, you know, we're hitting actual news pieces, which is something I stress heavily. I'm less the fluff, more of I like to talk about the actual things that come up in this league. And it looks like things are starting to move. The gears are turning to get those back on the site and to get those at least known where we can sign us all up. Where can we sign up, Stephan?
All right. Well, I'll tell you, it's really easy. So if you go to XFL Newsroom on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, you'll get signed up there, and make sure you check xflnewsroom.com daily for all the latest news. And it's not always just necessarily XFL, because if there's some spring league news that maybe relates, we're talking about it. And hey, you know, I got to say, since I'm here, this is the first show on the Unhinged Sports Network that I've been on. And and I'll tell you, Jim, he's a great guy. J-Dash for all the other listeners there. I'll tell you, you guys have done a great job building yourselves up in what, 6 months now, right?
It has been just over 6. We are getting really charged. We have blogs that are consistently daily as of this past month that started in February. Those are from many of the podcasts that are on there. I will eventually get more into that as well. You know me, Stephan. I am somewhat of an iffy on writer, but I can bring stuff when I need to. So
sure.
You know, but we're gearing up. You know, that's the thing. And I appreciate that stipulation. Jim's been doing a great job, which, you know, shout out to Jim in here. Jim Renier, he has been excellent at this whole thing. It's his passion project, and it's our belief that we're going to make something big. And this is for both of us because we're both involved with this too. So
for sure. Yeah. Well, that's the other one. I don't know if Jade Ash has talked about this online, but one day soon, now that the house has utilities, and hopefully soon, the Ref Says is coming to the Unhinged Network. We're going to be doing some kind of, I don't know if it's a weekly or monthly podcast or a video thing, but it's going to be fun. You're going to have to join. And it's not just going to be XFL. It's going to be my avenue to talk about whatever. And you know what? We might even talk about crypto and other things too, because I like money.
Ooh, all right. Hey, you want to make some cash? Go and talk to Stephan. The Ref Says will be coming up later this year, though. That is definitely an upcoming unhingedsn.com podcast, which, by the way, check out our social, Facebook and Instagram and Twitter as well. We also do have a YouTube. Just look up Unhinged Sports Network wherever you go. Stephan, thank you for coming on, man. This has been a long time in the making. I've been wanting to get you on here, and just the perfect timing. It's amazing that we're moving in the right direction, and at least some exciting stuff is happening.
I'm excited as well. And hey, thanks for having me here. Like I said, you're right. It's been a long time coming. And believe it or not, before we end it, I've been working with this guy, about a year now? Maybe a little bit less than a year?
About a year.
First time I've actually talked to this guy face to face. So sign everyone up. This is how we roll at XFL Newsroom. Elusive but exclusive. Sign up, Gridiron Gallery.
The Gridiron Gallery Podcast. New episodes every Friday on your favorite podcast platforms, YouTube, and premiering first, as always, at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, only on unhingedsn.com.